Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. And my guest today is serial entrepreneur, podcaster, author, and business coach, Brian Will. Brian is an industry expert in sales and management consulting and the best-selling author of The Dropout, Multi-Millionaire, and Know the Psychology of Sales and Negotiations. With over 35 years of experience creating 7 successful companies, Brian has a wealth of knowledge and experience in entrepreneurship, turnaround projects, and driving billions, and yes, that's billions of dollars in sales. Today, he's going to teach us how to close deals like a pro. Can't wait. So welcome, Brian, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Claudia, this is awesome. I got to tell you, I've been working my way around the world with podcasting, and it's my first time in Germany, so this is awesome.
Woo, exciting. So the tagline of your first book is 37 business lessons on how to succeed in business with no money, no education, and no clue. And I feel that this is a great place to start. So can you tell us your own success story and highlight some of the most important wins, but also maybe the most important failures along the way?
You know, Claudia, that was my second book. My first one was more of a personal journey from trauma through success. And then I wrote the second book, which was The Dropout Multi-Millionaire, which is really about building this business and understanding that I'm the kid that failed out of high school at 16 and then managed to graduate at the bottom, like literally at the 1.2 GPA, but didn't have any place to go, got kicked out of the house, rough childhood, had to go in the military, did that, got off, tried to hold a job, couldn't. And so I decided to start my first business. And so that's how I got into entrepreneurship. And having no idea what I was doing, I mean, not a clue, no money, no education, no clue. I started my first company. And over the last 30 years, I've done 2 venture capital exits, 1 private equity exit. I've done a private exit through an HGS, which is an Indian company. I've done consulting for Fortune 500 companies. I sit on city council, which is politics in my hometown. I've written 2 best-selling books. So it's really about, it doesn't matter where you start. It only matters that you keep moving through the process and learning. And that's kind of the story of my life.
And that's a very inspirational story, that's for sure. Can you tell us more about that first business? So what was the big idea that you built that first business on?
You know, there really wasn't. The funny thing is, I had just gotten married. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job, and I didn't have a place to live. So we moved in with my grandmother. And a friend called me and said, do you want to come cut grass, just mow grass with us for $4 an hour? And I didn't have a job. So I said, sure, that sounds good, but you got to pick me up because I don't have a car. And so I did that. And about 2 weeks into doing that, the idea started rolling through my head. This guy that I'm working for is making like a couple $1,000s a week and I'm making $4 an hour. How hard is it to mow grass? So it really wasn't that I was excited or had some vision of mowing grass. It just seemed to me like anybody could do this. And so why shouldn't I go do it for myself as opposed to working for somebody else? So I literally quit my job in 2 weeks and started my first little business. And over the next 7 years, we built it into about an $8 million company. I had 7 franchises around the Atlanta, Georgia area. And it did really good until it didn't. And then I made a couple mistakes and it crashed and burned and I lost everything again. I had to start from scratch. So a lot of big lessons in that first business and that first failure, but I've carried those with me forever.
Definitely. Can you tell us more about the big mistakes that you mentioned? So what were those mistakes and could you have prevented them or were they just some things that were out of your control?
So, you know, in business, a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. right?
Sure.
And if you don't know, then you don't even know that you're supposed to be doing something. You don't even know what you're supposed to think. You don't even know what questions to ask. This is one of the challenges with entrepreneurs. They think they need to know everything, and they really don't. They need to know how to ask questions to the right people. That's what they need to know. In my case, 80% of our revenue was coming from one big general contractor that we worked for. And when that general contractor hired another vice president of construction, they fired us and hired their son to do all the landscaping work. It was a landscaping company. And when they did that, they also withheld payment of $150,000. And so my first big mistake was I had too much business concentrated into one client. And you'd be surprised how many small business entrepreneurs have that same challenge, right? They work for one person. They think they've got a business. They really don't. They just have a job. And the second mistake was, as my income was going up, remember, I'm the kid who failed out of high school. So every dollar I made, I was spending. And at this point, I had a Mercedes and a sports car and a motorcycle and a house and a boat. And then when I didn't get paid that $150,000, suddenly I had no money in savings. I had no backup. I had no plan. I had no security. And when I didn't get the money, I couldn't pay the bills. And when I couldn't pay the bills, it's funny how the car company comes and takes your car away. An electricity company comes and turns your electricity off. And your employees still want to get paid, and your overhead and so my business crashed and burned because I had not created a financial safety net for the business. And I had lost all my business because I was with one client. So those are my first two big lessons, right? Don't concentrate on one client, and always, always, always build a safety net underneath you so that everything you have can't be taken away.
Great points. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, the book is titled 37 Business Lessons.
Mhm.
What is the most important one that stands out to you from the book?
Yeah, so this is one I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, and I touched on it a minute ago. But if you don't know, this is what I tell young entrepreneurs. Listen, if you have not built a successful business, then you don't know how. That's just a fact, right? You don't know how. Your brain doesn't know how to make the right decisions at the right time to propel you forward. You see so many entrepreneurs who either can't get it off the ground, or they're off the ground and they can't scale. And the reason they can't is because they don't know how. And it's all because of what's in their brain, right? They haven't properly trained their brain to understand how to make good business decisions. And so as an entrepreneur building a business, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail a lot. I mean, a lot, over and over and over and over and over. Success comes in making it through all the failures and getting to the end success. Now, as I like to say, there is a way for you to skip a lot of those mistakes that you are absolutely going to make. And that is to hire a business coach or a mentor who can come in and tell you, hey, Claudia, what you're doing isn't going to work. Hey, Claudia, don't do that. Do it this way. Hey, Claudia, listen to me. If you will do this, it will work much, much faster. You are about to make a mistake. And if you will bring that person in, that coach or that mentor, and let them help you, they can help you avoid those mistakes and accelerate that growth and profitability. But again, we go back to these entrepreneurs who think that they have to have all the answers, and they have to be the person that's the smartest person in the room. And unfortunately, that's probably their downfall. You need to get somebody to help.
Right. It's really important to have this supportive community around you. Maybe also something that I found super important is peer support. So maybe have a mastermind group that supports you, just gives you feedback and shares their point of view, because so often we get stuck seeing things in a certain way and we just can't think outside the box, so to speak.
Right.
Just having people who reflect back to you what you maybe can't see is so helpful.
We call this the entrepreneur 30-degree blinders, right? When you're building a business, you tend to see things like this.
Exactly.
And your coach has a 180-degree view because they've been there and done that, and they can see what's going on around you. While you're so focused, they're going, whoa, what about this over here? What about this over here? You just don't see it. You don't see it. And that's why you need to bring somebody in to help.
That's so true. Have you learned any other super important business lessons since publishing your book so that they didn't make it into the book?
You know, the other big one is ego. And a lot of this has to do with entrepreneurial ego. And that ego, a lot of times, is the downfall of the person that's trying to build the business, right? And everybody's got an ego. And to be successful, you have to have an ego. You just do. But The ego problem is what's going to keep you from listening to the people that are trying to help you, that probably know more than you know. And it's the ego that's going to keep you from allowing your team members in your company to learn and fail without getting mad at them and firing them. It's the ego that is going to keep you from really succeeding in business, right? And I say everybody's got an ego. You know, I've had a lot of success in life, and people say, well, how did you overcome your ego? And I say, you know, I'll give you a perfect example of an ego, right? So when I wrote my last book, I'd already had one Wall Street Journal bestseller. I wrote the second one and I submitted it to the publisher and I said, here's the cover I want to use. And they said, no, that cover's terrible. That's not going to work. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm successful. I've built businesses and I already have one best-selling book. And they said, no, that cover's terrible. And we argued for like 5 minutes until I had to think to myself, hold on a second. This is someone who's done this 1,000 times and I've done it once, and I'm arguing with them, trying to tell them how to do their job better while they're sitting over there going, Brian, no, that's not going to work. Trust me. And finally, I had to check my own ego and go, you know what? I apologize. You're right. Do it your way. Obviously, you know more about this than I do. So we all have that ego problem. It's just a matter of being able to self-recognize that ego problem and then allow yourself to check it and bring somebody else in, again, who knows better.
Do you have any tips for people who suspect they may be struggling with an ego problem?
Yeah, I would find, again, we talk about coaching and we talk about mentors, and people say, well, how do you find a good one? And I always tell people, you need to vet the person that you're going to allow to put information into your brain. You need to vet them hard. You need to make sure that they have had success, that they've done what they say they can do, that they've had examples of it. You need to make sure that they know what they're talking about. But once you have made that decision, then you need to go ahead and listen to them. And so if you think you're having an issue, I would suggest that you do an introductory call with 3 or 4 people and say, hey, these are my problems. These are my challenges. What do you think? And find one that you think is on the same wavelength as you and bring them in and let them help you. But it's easy. It's an easy answer. If your business isn't growing like you want it to, if it's not scaling and it's not as profitable, you have a problem. It's just that simple. It's math, right? And that's the first indicator that you need to bring somebody in.
Yeah, and maybe one thing to add to that is if you interview different people, don't go for the one that says yes to everything you say.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Choose someone who is willing to challenge you. And yeah.
If they say yes to everything you say, then how are they going to help you? They're just going to agree with it. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, but so many people do this, right? They surround themselves with people who just say, yes, yes, sir, you're right. And then they don't learn anything.
You're exactly right.
So how easy or hard was it for you to transfer what you learned in one industry to a new business in a different industry?
You know, I have never been the technician in the business, right? I talk about in my book how there are 4 personalities in every successful business. There's an entrepreneur, there's a manager, there's a salesperson, and there's a technician. The technician is a person that really knows how to do stuff, right? If you're a computer company, they know how to do coding. If you're a welding company, that's a person who knows how to weld. I was never the technician. I didn't know anything about landscaping. I didn't know anything about insurance. I didn't know anything about the restaurants. I own a restaurant chain today. I don't know how to cook. So I've never focused my business on my personal skill set in the technical parts of the business. What I do is operations. I'm a business owner. I'm not a technician within the business, right? I can own a plumbing company, but I don't know how to plumb, but I do know how to run a business. I own a restaurant chain, but I don't know how to cook because I know how to run a business. So understanding who you are, and even more importantly, who you're not in the business, makes a big difference. If you are the technician, then you need to bring a business person in to help you run the business side. If you are a business person, then you need to bring a technician in to help you run the technical side. So because I've never been a technician, I've always been the business owner. It allows me to easily move from business to business and even consult with businesses, right? I don't really need to step foot in your business. I don't really need to. I'm going out to Portland, Oregon in a couple of weeks to work with a company that installs Windows. I don't know anything about Windows, but I do know how to sell. And so I can teach your sales force how to sell more Windows.
That makes sense. So you would say just hire for your weaknesses and
100%. Yep. Be who you are. That's, again, we're back to the ego though, Claudia. Too many entrepreneurs, they're a technician and they think they're a CEO, right? And then they get in there, and as I like to say, One of my favorite sayings is, if Joe the plumber starts Joe's plumbing business, if Joe's plumbing business fails, it will not be because Joe doesn't know how to plumb. It will be because Joe doesn't know how to run a business. So if
Right.
you're the plumber, you need to find somebody who knows how to run a business to come in and help you. Don't get into this crazy idea that because I started the business, I'm now the CEO and I know everything and every decision should be mine. It shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's an important mindset shift for a lot of people who think that they need to work on their weaknesses instead of focus on their natural strength.
You can do
Because,
that, but you'll never grow big ever
yeah,
because you can't.
it's hard and it's less fun.
And again, we're back to one of the mistakes I made, right? Is my income went up in my first business. I spent, where I should have been bringing in more talent to help me bolster and grow the company, right? If you can get over that and start your business and every dollar you make, you use to hire your weakness, bring somebody else in to help you, you will significantly grow that business at a much, much faster rate than if you're trying to do it yourself. I don't
Now,
learn my weaknesses. I'm sorry. I hire people to do my weaknesses. That's
that's a great strategy. It sounds like you learned a lot from those early mistakes, but are there any other recurring themes or struggles that you had along the way that maybe followed you from one business to the next? Or did it just get easier and easier with each business?
you know, it does it certain things get easier and easier and certain things don't. And I don't care where you are in your journey, you're going to struggle, right? There's no perfect business, there's no perfect business person. Everybody struggles. In fact, I like to talk about Tim Cook, who runs Apple Computer, right? Apple's like the biggest cell phone company in the world. I don't know, one of the biggest companies in the world. And yet the guy's got to be like super genius. And yet he still has 12 people on his board of directors that come in every quarter and give him advice on how to run his business. And this is what most people don't know, Tim Cook has a personal coach who comes in and personally coaches him. In fact, one of the guys who is one of my mentors is a CEO coach to two of the Fortune 50 companies worldwide. These people who are very successful understand the need for coaching, mentoring. Board of directors are almost the same thing. And yet we see all these younger entrepreneurs or people that which much smaller businesses think that they have to have all the answers and do it all themselves. And yet the more successful you get, the more you realize you don't have the answers and you need to bring people in.
Right. Now it sounds like you're keeping yourself busy building company after company. What is your motivation or the driving force behind that?
Well, first I would say I'm ADHD. So I've tried to quit a couple of times and I can't. When I sold my companies in 06 and 08 and 2010, I tried to quit and my brain doesn't stop. And again, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably recognize the same thing within yourself. Your brain just doesn't stop. Like I walk into a business and I'm looking around going, I could own this. I could probably build this. And then I'll be like, what am I thinking? This is a dress shop. I don't need to own a dress shop. That's crazy. But that's what my brain thinks. It's always like trying to do something. And then eventually, if you have a lot of success, you get to the point where it's not about the money as much as it's about the warrior mentality that a lot of entrepreneurs have. And I think that's a very real thing. Successful people have a warrior mentality. We're fighters. We've got to have a fight. We've got to have a battle. We've got to have something to conquer. And so we do these things for that purpose more so than, oh, gee, I need to make another $1 million. That's not really going to make any difference in my life. But winning, that's really cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I'll tell you a story that I was just over. You know who Richard Branson is, I assume.
Yep.
Okay, so I was over on Necker Island. He lives on a Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands. I was there in July. We spent 5 days with him. And he's got like 100 companies that he still owns. And he works with entrepreneurs all over the world. And he's sending people to space. And yet he lives on this paradise of an island with 20 people on staff. And if he wants to kite surf, he has an instructor. And if he wants to play tennis, he has an instructor. Like he has everything every human being could ever want. And yet he still goes and does this. And I asked him one night, I said, Richard, it was his birthday. I said, you're 73 years old. Why are you still out there killing it? And he said, Brian, here's the deal. If you have a talent or an ability and that includes building businesses, and you can use that talent and ability to make the world a better place, then you have an obligation as a human being to go do that and give back to the world that gave you so much.
Mm.
And that was like
Love
a mic drop moment. I was like, oh, got it. So I was being selfish. I'm sorry, Richard. I was just here for the fun.
But fun is a very good point. I think when you get to the point where building businesses is fun, then you kind of think like, why would I quit something that's fun? Right?
100%. And as long as you can build those businesses out of fun and it doesn't affect your long-term life, then that makes it even more fun. As I like to say, if you're building a business and you're still worried about paying the bills at home, then you're not making the best possible decisions you can make in your business, because you're always potentially thinking about how it's going to affect your home life. So at some point when you start to achieve some success and you've built this giant safety net and whatever you're doing can't hurt you, that's when it really gets fun, because if it fails, it fails. I mean, I've had failures. I still have failures. I've owned 15 restaurants and only 8 of them worked. That means I'm only about 60% success rate in the restaurant business, but that's okay, because the ones that work really work well.
Right. Yeah. If you can get to a place where your decisions are no longer fear-based,
Yes.
but they're joy-based or curiosity-based, then you're really successful.
Yes, that's exactly right.
How do you personally make sure that you are staying happy, healthy, and productive? Because a lot of high achievers, they are workaholics. I don't know about you. So what do you do on a daily basis to stay in good shape?
Well, I think I gave you a hint of that earlier when I said it's early in the morning here, and you said, "What time is it?" And I said, "It's 9:30," and you went, "That's not early." Well, it is for me. I have always built my businesses with this common theme that I am useless. Don't ask me questions. Go figure it out on your own. Okay. And by doing that, 2 things happen. Number one, my staff gets trained to actually go think for themselves, make decisions, and build the business without me, which gives me freedom and lifestyle so that I can go anywhere and do anything and yet still have my 30,000 foot overview, command and control of my company. Now, the challenge with that is that by doing so, it costs you money. It costs me a lot of money to let my employees make mistakes. It costs me a lot of money to train people into executive positions. It costs me a lot of money to not just go in and fix the problem, which is what most entrepreneurs do. But I'm willing to trade that little bit of money for the freedom and lifestyle that I've got, that I don't have to go to work, right? I own an office building. I have employees, but I don't have an office in my own office building. I don't have one. If I go there, I have to sit in the conference room because there's no place for me to sit down otherwise. But that's the way I build my businesses. That's the lifestyle I've got. So I can be skiing and take a call, while I'm standing in line for the next ski run, but then I put my phone away and I go skiing again. And again, that's from a lifetime of building businesses, creating huge safety nets and learning how to operate a business that way. But that's the way I do it.
So with all the freedom that you've created, how do you structure your day? Can you walk us through a typical day in your life?
Well, what's interesting is I only started down this path of podcasting and entrepreneurial coaching about 7 or 8 months ago. And really because I just started following some people and they were amazing coaches. And I thought, well, I've got 35 years of experience. I've sold companies into venture capital and private equity, and I've trained thousands of people, and we've done billions in sales. I should do this. So I would say technically the last 6 months have been much more busy for me than the last 6 years, because I've been building websites and building out coaching tracks and doing the whole social media thing and doing the podcasting. I do about 3 of these a week. So a typical day for me is my podcast producer either has me scheduled on a podcast or I've got one to do. I have an assistant and I have a social media manager. She's actually on her way over here now. I work out of my house. So she's coming from my office to my house to work. And then we're going to set up the weekly stuff for the social media. And then I've got an introductory call to do. And then I'm going to fly to Tennessee for a 3-day mastermind. So next week, I'm doing another 3-day mastermind up in the Tennessee mountains with another group. So really, my days are not super structured. I don't have to get up early in the morning, and I can almost do what I want as long as I stay within the boundaries of what, is pre-scheduled.
That still sounds like business, business, business. What about exercise? What about diet? And what about all the other stuff that keeps you healthy and
Sure.
productive?
Well, the fact that I had to do a 9:30 podcast kept me from doing my morning routine today.
I'm
So,
so sorry.
so when I get off of this and then I do my call, so I usually go out and I run in the morning. So this is my weird thing. I drink 40 grams of protein. I go out and I run 3 miles. Then I come back to the house. I do a little bit of exercise, not a ton. And then I chill out and cool down and then get my day started. So I usually get my day started around 11.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love running in the morning as well. What about nutrition? Can I just ask you about your personal diet and eating habits and routines? Because just I know that a lot of people in the audience geek out about stuff like that.
I hate to tell you this, but I have an oven and a stove that has never been used. I don't cook. And maybe part of the reason I own restaurants is I can just stop. I'm like never far away, 20 minutes away from one of my restaurants. So I just go in and I have them make me something. I literally eat out 7 days a week, every single meal. That's me.
And do you follow a specific diet? Like,
I do not.
You do not.
I do not. I exercise so I can eat. That's kind of my thing.
Awesome.
If I didn't exercise, I'd weigh about 300 pounds.
Yeah, probably would be the same if I had those restaurants and I could just go there and eat there every day. Now,
Yeah.
let's get back to business. What has building 7 highly successful businesses taught you about sales specifically?
Oh gosh, sales runs the world. If you don't have sales, you don't have a business. I spent some time in Silicon Valley with venture capitalists, and they're all engineers, and sometimes engineers get all wrapped up in the fact that they're building the next latest, greatest widget. But I have to always go back and remind them, if nobody buys your widget, then we don't have a company. So sales is the key to everything in a business. Somebody has to sell something. You're either selling a product or selling you, and people have to believe that you are going to provide them whatever product or service that is. But either way, you're still selling something. So again, if you're starting a business or running a business and sales is not your thing, then you need to bring a salesperson in, because you'd be amazed how fast you can either go out of business or you can accelerate your business based on whether you're good or bad at sales. Sales is the key.
Right. Now, I promised people in the intro that you're going to teach us how to close deals like a pro. So I got to ask you, what are your best tips for negotiating great deals?
So the key to sales, and I actually have a master class on my website. It's called The Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. The key to sales, once again, is not talking, not pitching, and not trying to close. Those are not the keys to sales. Everybody thinks that's what a sale is. Oh, I got to go tell them all about my product, and I got to pitch them, and I got to overcome their objections, and I got to close them, and I need a cheesy sales line. That is not how you sell. Not a master salesperson. A master salesperson will ask you questions, a lot of questions, because if I ask you the right types of questions and enough of them, you will eventually talk yourself into buying whatever it is I'm selling you.
Right.
Because what if I say, Claudia, well, let me ask you something. What was the last thing you think you bought, Claudia? What was the last big thing you bought?
I don't even know.
Well, let's say I love car sales, because car sales are such an easy example, because it's such an exaggerated process, right? So I'll give you an example. So have you ever bought a new car?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
did you go into a car lot and talk to a car salesman?
Yes, I did.
You did. And when you walked on it wasn't a friend, was it?
No, it
Okay.
wasn't.
When you went into the car lot to buy that car and you saw the car salesman, did you think that he was going to give you the very best deal right out of the gate?
No.
Did you trust that he was going to be looking out for your best interests?
Not necessarily.
No. In fact, did you think that he was probably going to try to sell you something that and make you overpay and get you to do things you don't want to do? That's probably what you thought. Yeah. Because the reality is, if you're in sales, you need to understand that how you think about salespeople, other people think about you when you're trying to sell them. And that is one of the big things. How would you react if somebody were doing to you what you're doing to somebody else? Does that make sense? And so if you're being cheesy, then they're reacting the same way you would react if you were acting cheesy. So if we know that the number one objection, the number one rule in sales is that people don't like salespeople, right? And it's not that they don't like them as a person. They're probably great people, right? They may have kids and they go to school and they have parties, but when you put that sales hat on, people stop trusting you because they think you're going to try and pull something over on them. That is the first objection you have to deal with as a salesperson. And if you don't understand that, then you are constantly fighting an uphill battle against what we call the wall of mistrust between you and the client, right? So your first objective in the sales process is not to try to sell them. It's to try to get that wall of mistrust down, right? So if I said to you, Claudia, listen, you're looking for a new car, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, find out what you're looking for. And then based on your answers, we're going to see if we have a car that fits that. And if we do have a car that fits that, let's take it for a test drive, see if you even like it. And then if you like it, I'm going to run over some pricing options. I'm going to let you decide if this is something you want to move forward with. Now, is that fair enough?
Sounds good.
Right. So that I'm basically saying, look, I'm just going to give you options. But what I've really done right there, and this is the psychology piece, is I've told you what's going to happen next. I took away that unknown. You don't know what this salesperson's going to do. What's he going to say? What's he going to do? What's he going to try? And I've also told you at the end of the day, you get to decide. I'm not going to try and push you into buying this vehicle. So I'm going to just give you your pricing options and let you decide. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great. And so what I've done is I'm starting to build a little bit of trust with you. I'm starting to take down what we call that wall of mistrust. And then as long as I do what I said I'm going to do, I start building the trust. And if you begin to trust me, you'll begin to like me. And then, by the way, we're going to start laughing, and I'm going to ask you a bunch of crazy questions about yourself, and I'll figure out a way to make a connection. And at the end of the day, here's what's important about the sales process, right? I love this one too. Too many people think when they're selling something, they have to tell you everything about the product or service. Everything. Like they just want to throw up on you all this information. And I go back to my car example. When you walked on the lot, Claudia, did they hand you the owner's manual and say, hey, I need you to read this owner's manual before we take a test drive?
No.
They didn't? They didn't say, hey, before we talk about, can I get you to go into the finance department and we got to talk about financing derivatives before we decide what car we're. They didn't do that with you?
No, they didn't.
No, because nobody cares. I mean, what's important? The stuff in the car's manual is important, but it's not important right now. The only thing that was important is what color are you looking for? And do you want leather seats or cloth? And do you want a standard or automatic? And do you want a new one or a used one? Oh, okay, I got a black with leather. It's a standard. Let's go ahead and take it for a ride. I want you to fall in love with the very, very high priority items of whatever it is I'm selling. And if I can get you to fall in love with that, then we'll deal with the stuff on the back end. Too many salespeople are handing us the owner's manual and saying, hey, let me talk for 20 minutes on how my product works. And nobody cares. So talk less, take down the wall of mistrust, understand the first objection, talk as little as possible. Let me say that again. Get them to fall in love with a couple of things. And by the way, we're also asking them why they're shopping and who else they've shopped with and what kind of pricing they've seen. And we never ask budget questions. There's so many things I could go into. We don't have time. But get them to fall in love before you regurgitate on them on everything there is to know about your product.
Those are amazing tips. Thank you so much for sharing. And I really agree with you on that number one rule with the trust rule. And I really don't understand why so many people, for example, still send cold DMs just pitching their services. It's like, I don't even know you. And I get those messages day in
auto
and
delete.
day out.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's such a waste of time.
Does that really work?
I don't know.
I can't imagine that works.
No, me neither. So I always wonder, like, how did this start? Who is teaching this?
Somebody probably paid a lot of money for that course and sending cold DMs.
Probably. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Number one thing I tell everybody, I don't care who it is, but if you're going to build a business, you need to get a coach or a mentor to help you. It will accelerate your growth, profit, success, sustainability. Everything in your life will be accelerated if you find the right coach. Just find the right one. and make sure you vet them before you allow them to put information in your brain.
Sounds good. So where can people find you online if they would like to learn more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, so I have two websites. One is brianwillmedia.com. brianwillmedia.com has my books, my podcasts, my blogs, and then my coaching page is called the Dropout MM, thedropoutmm.com, which you can also get to from brianwillmedia.com. And that's got my coaching and I have a free masterclass in sales. Some of the stuff we were just talking about on there. You can get a sales coupon, use the word sales, get the free class. So that's me.
Wonderful.
A
Brian,
shameless plug.
Fair enough. Again, thank you so much for sharing all those tips and insights with us today. It's been great having you on the show.
Claudia, I had a lot of fun. Thanks.
Take care and talk soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. Want more? For quick, actionable tips and insights to guided meditations and a side of biohacking, join my inner circle and get access to exclusive subscriber-only content. Again, just use the link in the show notes to join the tribe. Thank you for your support and see you on the other side. Take care and talk soon. Bye.